here we are with live reaction to Celtic's Champions League draw. Oh, I am joined by Stephen.
I was going to open with that Champions League song, but I don't know if I've got those notes in me.
I don't know the words. What are the words?
No,
is it just we are the champions over and over in various different languages?
Something in there about champions, but I think that's basically the only bit everyone knows. Kind of like Simply the Best. No one ever sings the verses to it, so the Huns just sing Simply the Best and don't know any of the other words. But I frankly don't think I could hit those high notes for the Champions League theme tune, unfortunately.
Well, it doesn't matter, Stephen, because you're going to get ample opportunity to learn the words. We're going to hear it 6 times next season, maybe 7 or 8, depending on how well we do in the tournament. That all depends, though, Stephen.
I hope it's not 7. That would be odd.
Yeah, that would be on, right? But it all depends on how well we do in the group, and that group is Shakhtar Donetsk, RB Leipzig, and Real Madrid. Now, Stephen, that is the one team that everyone wanted, the team that Callum McGregor, the Celtic captain, wanted. But part of me thinks it's be careful what you wish for, because Real Madrid are the La Liga winners, the Supercopa winners, last year's Champions League winners. Benzema is the top goal scorer in the Champions League last year and voted the best player. That is a hell of a team.
They are one of the most successful clubs in that competition. If you take away Rangers, who are without doubt the most successful club in the world, Real Madrid are right up there when you think about it, aren't they?
See, actually, fuck all that before we get into the weeds of Real Madrid specifically. Stephen, how are you feeling about the draw as a whole? Come on.
Okay, it was always going to be difficult, wasn't it? It was always going to be tough. I was actually following across various group chats full of Tims and all that as the draw was being drawn out for about 5 hours, it felt like, on BT Sports. And I saw one comment in particular. Is it just me or do all the groups look hard? I'm like, mate, it's the fucking Champions League.
It is the Champions League. Definitely want to get myself 2 tickets for that Real Madrid away. That'll be sensational. If you ever want to see your team get pumped somewhere, it's at the Bernabeu in the Champions League. But overall, Stephen, looking at the group, Leipzig, a team that Rangers put out last season, they put them out in the Europa League. They were 4th in the Bundesliga, semi-finals Europa League, but they were knocked out by Rangers. We played them in 17-18 Europa group stage, and they got 7 points last year, though, from a group containing PSG and Manchester United. So, Manchester City, rather. So on one side of the table, it's an extraordinarily tricky second team there. On the other hand, we've seen Rangers put them out of a tournament. They can be got at.
Well, Leipzig they're one of these clubs that are held up as the model for running football clubs. The aren't they run by Red Bull thing that Red Bull have distanced themselves. But if you take that aside, they are held up as one of these like great clubs and all that. They're hated in Germany because they are basically one of these kind of new money, no passion, like no history clubs and all that. But they are held up as one of these clubs to emulate. They're really well run and all that. But they're sitting 11th in the table just now. Only 3 games in, granted, but they haven't won a league game yet, as far as I'm aware. So they haven't started the season particularly well. I mean, things might be completely different by the time the fixtures roll around. And when are the fixtures likely to be announced? That the order of the games, I'm not sure on that.
Soon.
But Leipzig, yeah, I thought
soon. Obviously the match days are already more or less decided. They just need to order the fixtures.
Yeah. So Leipzig, that I'm looking at that as tricky. Yeah, I don't think we can afford to take anything for granted. I don't think there's going to be any easy games in there. We are the top 4 team after all. Yeah. That's for a reason. But Leipzig, it's no insurmountable, is it? It's not like we didn't get one of the Liverpools or Chelseas or anything like that where you think, well, that's a really tough draw to be getting there. But I think Celtic can probably take something off them.
It's not the most minging group. The only interesting, not the most interesting thing, rather, not the only interesting thing. The most interesting thing for me is going to be Ange's approach to this, because we know he's not going to change his approach. He's going to go toe to toe. He's going to go head to head with these guys. It's going to be like that against Real Madrid. Make no mistake. We're not going to shite ourselves from Real Madrid. We're going to try and give them a fright. And we're going to do it to Leipzig, and we're going to do it to Shakhtar Donetsk as well. And that's the third team that we need to talk about, Shakhtar Donetsk. Obviously, Celtic got a wee bit of history with Shakhtar Donetsk, who are playing their games in Warsaw at the moment. I'm led to believe, obviously, with all that going on in the Ukraine. So no away days. What's going on in the Ukraine? I don't know what's going on in the Ukraine, but it's not nice. Yes. As a wise philosopher just said at the weekend there, Mr. Anthony Joshua. Yes, I saw that. Well, they were in the Champions League last year with Real Madrid. So it's some old competition for them. But again, you're looking at Shakhtar. You're going, not the team they once were. They were a major force a couple of years ago, maybe about a decade ago. There was a lot of money in them. But you think third is possible? Third is possible here.
It definitely is. I think that's definitely possible. Who's going to be the first ambulance chasing bastard to suggest that Celtic should let Shakhtar win because what's happening in Ukraine. I remember Souness was hitting out with that patter. He hoped Ukraine beat Scotland. Absolutely hand-wringing buffoon.
That's right.
Somebody's bound to say it, isn't
they? Yes.
Somebody's bound to say it. Oh, I think we should let Shakhtar win because of what's going on in Ukraine. But they are one of the teams. I almost joked about Shakhtar. I made the analogy about going back to a pub and you don't recognise anyone but sitting in the corner is Shakhtar. I nearly said that the other night, and sure enough we got them. But that could have been Shakhtar. Of the pot three teams, they're kind of in the middle. I'm not really sure about them. They weren't the trickiest ones. They certainly weren't the easiest ones. But I think overall the group looks...
Well, Michael McCann said, question, lads, should we be doing our usual aiming for third or should we be targeting second given the nature of the group? And look, you target second. I don't think Leipzig are anything to be afraid of. They're a good team. They're a rich team. But they got beat last year by Rangers. They get put out of the competition by Rangers and they were shite against Rangers. Now, obviously, that will be, some months hence by the time we come round to playing them away, back and forward. But Celtic Park at home, we know what that's like in Europe. We know what those nights are like. We know we can get results there. Leipzig they're not to be scared of, especially at home.
No, definitely not. And I think I was gutted when Rangers qualified. Right, that's how bitter I am. I don't want to give them anything. I see how this.
The last 3 European games they've had, the opposition's thrown one in the net. Unbelievable.
I saw the goal eventually, but
all that luck that they got for sacrificing somebody is unbelievable.
But my point is, I was gutted when they qualified. But see, the one good positive thing about Rangers actually doing well in Europe in the last couple of seasons, right? They got to a final, obviously, and they've qualified at the first attempt. Something that Celtic have been trying to do for 5 years here. The one positive about that is that it's kind of removing the excuses for us. Do you know what I mean? There's no reason that Celtic can't be going out and putting in similar performances in Europe to they have. There's no reason for it.
There's no reason.
I think we, as sitting here, everyone watching this would all, broadly agree that Celtic are better than Rangers. Of course we do. So why aren't we doing this? And this is the opportunity.
I think there's a difference though, and I think this is going to be a really interesting difference from not a neutral perspective, but from an overall football perspective. We've got two managers here with completely different philosophies. Ange is a guy who doesn't refuse to be pragmatic, but he's already said, Harry Kewell did in an interview, we're not going to change our style. We think we can win these games by giving these teams a fright. We need to make them uncomfortable. Yeah. And that means taking the game to them, giving them something that they're maybe not used to. Whereas Rangers, he's quite happy to chop and change. He's quite happy to be quite pragmatic, let the opposition have the ball. So there's going to be a real juxtaposition in styles for these two teams. And I think just to finish, and I think we are, as we saw with Ange in the Europa Conference, we are more likely to be on the end of a hiding because of the way we play the game and we take it and we take it and we take it. But look, as Harry Kewell said, you only live once, so you might as well go for it.
Yeah, I can't wait for us to get slagged, us to be hoisted by our own petard when it comes to, mind you were saying the Scottish team should attack, how it would all be better. We're going to get absolute tankings in the Champions League, no doubt. But that's not the point. I remember when I was making these points and all the TikToks comments and all were getting absolute dogs abuse. Among the comments were like, I don't know about that when you're getting gubbed in the Champions League. And I was like, but that's not the point. I expect Celtic, I don't want them to, but I expect Celtic to lose at least a couple of games, maybe even heavily against Real Madrid, right? But if Callum McGregor and Ange Postecoglou come out before those games and say our plan is to commit fouls, and basically sit in their own box the entire time, then I'll eat this microphone. Do you know what I mean? It's not about losing; it's about how you lose, to me. And so I fully expect Celtic to go out and play their game. If Ange has got to where he is, believing that that's the best way to disrupt bigger teams than you, or bigger and more moneyed teams than you, then that's fully what I expect to see, because he has become successful off the back of that. Albeit he does manage the best team in the country just now. That wasn't always the case. He has won international tournaments with unfancied teams. I don't think everyone knows Australia from World Cups and all that, but they're nowhere near the size and resources of Japan and South Korea and all that in that neck of the woods. He has won leagues with Japanese teams that were completely unfancied as well. So he has a track record of being able to do things like this, and for that reason, he's got a right to believe that he can do it again with Celtic.
Yeah.
Whether the gap is just too big to really, for that to be a success, I don't know. We're going to find out. I keep saying I don't know what it's like in the Champions League anymore. I barely watch it. That's the first time I've actually been interested in a draw for years. So we'll find out, but I think you're right about Celtic's approach to it. Rangers have got an awful lot of luck recently. I don't want to do that thing. I don't want to do the pure bitter Tim thing,
true.
right? But it's
fucking true.
It?
But we don't want to spend too much time talking about Rangers. I don't think that's what people want to hear, but it's worth just mentioning how much luck they've had recently and comparing the two teams. Now, I want to just run through some comments. If anyone's wondering why I keep looking down here, we've had a wee studio change. Regular viewers to our live video content will probably be happy that things look a bit better and I don't look like a glowing skull of sorted the lighting. It just means I have to occasionally look down at a second monitor here, just down here. So the lyrics, Stephen said, JFF are we are the champions in all the major languages of Europe. Ryan Doherty said,
I see.
This is exciting. We can go and actually play our game and see how it goes. Take the pumpings against Madrid, and we don't have to pretend we can play like Hamilton tactics and hold out to a big team. It will be interesting, as you say, Stephen, to see if we apply our own logic here about actually going and take the game to these teams instead of sitting in like Hamilton and Livingston and all these other teams do. Shawnee boy, we will beat Real Madrid at Parker's. Do you think Real Madrid are going to get the Barcelona treatment, Stephen?
No, I certainly hope not. I hope no one ever gets that treatment ever again. Apart from Frankfurt, which we all agreed on Monday. I think they deserve a welcome if they ever come to Celtic Park, ever come to Parkers. But no, not Real Madrid. The clues in the name, Royal. They are Royal Madrid. They've got a crown in their badge and everything. Fuck all that stuff. Nah, they're not. They're not. One
That's
of our
the answer
friends.
I wanted to hear. Tom Smith says the reason is we play fast, open, attacking football, which is more easily countered in Europe versus their slow, stodgy football, which is harder to beat. And I think he's onto something there. Real Madrid is all well and good, but it's no the cinch, is it? Says Paul McAnally. Right. Dan Tosney, and with something interesting, first for Dan, he says Ange's Oz team versus Ange's Oz team versus Chile and the Netherlands will be the blueprint. So I wonder if that's something to refer back to, going back and seeing how his Australia team took on these big teams in the World Cup, Stephen.
Yeah, well, from memory, I mean, that was an example that often comes up when we have these rather tedious debates, or not between us, but the debates against the tedious points about how Ange only knows one system and he needs players for that system. With Australia, he played a completely different way, a completely different formation. I think he often played things like 3-4-3, 3-4-1-2 and all that for Australia. So it'd be quite interesting to go back and see some of those games, but they are mentioned in his book, so I'll maybe consult the pages of that. And I think Jackson Irvin mentioned something about it when he was talking to Melly recently as well. So it's maybe worth consulting those guys because they know better than we do. No. But I do. The thing is, I want to be clear about this as well. See, Ange's approach, right? He does know what he's doing. It's not just one way he plays. He will be aware that playing against Real Madrid is harder than playing against Kilmarnock. So it's not going to be exactly the same thing. It's just an overall philosophy rather than, right, we're just going to play exactly the same way in every game.
Melly's up at Celtic Park just now. We got invited to watch the Champions League draw up at Celtic Park, and there's two players in attendance. One's Kyogo, Stephen. Who was the other one? Is it Jens?
Yes, Moritz Jens.
So they'll be giving their thoughts about playing in the Champions League. But these players will be buzzing, won't they? The players will be absolutely buzzing. Players like Callum McGregor and Greg Taylor and all these guys that have been at the club for a while. The only player, quite interesting, that Joe Hart keeps getting... Joe Hart is super level-headed, super professional guy, but he keeps getting sort of prodded and poked about playing in the Champions League again and all this sort of stuff. And he's like it is exciting, but I've played there before. You know, he's very, very level-headed about it. But I think Callum McGregor leading Celtic out as Celtic captain against Real Madrid, disco lights, music, Champions League music. He's leading his team out against the European champions at Celtic Park. I mean, come on, inject it right fucking here.
How many times have Real Madrid won the Champions League? 14 or something ridiculous like that. But I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that. As much as we're joking about the Rangers being the most successful, it doesn't get any bigger than in the Champions League against Real Madrid for a Celtic captain. It simply doesn't. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that Callum McGregor will have been Well, he will have set himself some goals as Celtic captain, you would think, and that maybe not specifically Real Madrid, because you don't know how draws are ever going to fall, but to lead Celtic out against one of the true European giants at Celtic Park in the proper Champions League, not in any kind of Europa League or anything like that we felt like we were stuck in forever over the last few years. That's right up there for the ambitions of a captain, surely. I can only speculate, but I bet he's been thinking about this since the day, not only the day he pulled on the armband, but the day he pulled on his first ever hoops.
Well, we played Champions League, it was European Cup against Real Madrid quarter-final in 1980. We played them again in August. Oh, let me have the date here. I've got the date here. We played them in the Herbalife World Football Tournament. And
the granddaddy of them all.
The granddaddy of them all in 2012, August 2012. I ran through the team. It was Neil Lennon's team. You can pretty much guess who it was. An absolute, Charlie Mulgrew, Joe Ledley, and all that lot. I think that was the last time. Daryl Murphy up front. Yes. Walesy wants to know, how many points are we looking at realistically? He thinks 2 wins and a draw, Stephen. I think that's realistic. I think Shakhtar home and away and a draw against Leipzig. I think that's, unless he means Real Madrid home and away. Okay.
Yeah, well, I'd see as the pot 4 team, you're looking at immediately at pot 3, Shakhtar, right? You're looking at them and thinking, if you don't beat them at home, it's going to be very difficult, isn't it? That's your best chance. On paper, that's your best chance of scoring points, is against the nearest team to you, or the weakest team apart from you on paper, and beating them at home. So you've got to hopefully plan for that. Beat Shakhtar at home. A draw away, it will be tricky, although it's a neutral venue, so nothing really to be feared there. Surely, Real Madrid, I'm not banking on anything, to be honest. But see if you can take.
Well, as Michael Conlon says, Stephen, Real Madrid were beat by Sheriff last year.
That's true. Yeah,
they can be just all we need to do now, right, is just look at all the other time these teams were beaten by smaller teams. So Sheriff beat Real Madrid, so by that logic, we can beat Real Madrid. And Leipzig were beaten by Rangers, so we can beat Leipzig. So, and we've beaten Donetsk before, so is third putting ourselves down?
Bit by maths, isn't it?
That's how it works.
Well, Sheriff had that nice story about the guy who had the Champions League. He had a tattoo of himself playing in the Champions League, something along those lines.
Before or after the game? Before the game.
It was before. I'm pretty sure he had a tattoo of himself playing it. I can't remember the exact details of it, but it was a kind of nice story that came out. He was the guy who scored against Real Madrid. So I'm just saying, if that's the blueprint, if that's the formula, get a tattoo. Get the appointments booked, lads.
A few questions on the fixtures still. I don't know is the honest answer when the fixtures are actually announced, but the match days are already announced. They're on the UEFA website. It's actually next week, isn't it?
So, I think the first one's in the 6th and 7th of September.
Very, very soon. Chris Wedlock says, though, do you want Real Madrid back to back for the fixtures? And I think the answer is yes. Get the double header right in the middle.
3 and 4. Aye, why not? Go to Real Madrid. Aye.
Undercover Brother 67 said Ange Postecoglou will deliver us through this group. You know what? I've got a lot of faith in the manager, Stephen. Everything feels right. Everything feels right for us at the moment. Ange coming in last year, winning the league, getting into the Champions League this year, getting Real Madrid. It just all feels, Ange versus Real, it just all feels right. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It feels like this is where we belong. But especially just, you're ticking off wee boxes here, aren't you? I mean, I'm buzzing for it, absolutely buzzing.
Yeah, it's been too long. It's just been too long. We had the discussion on Monday about how Europe just isn't good enough for Celtic these days. It just isn't. We've eventually settled into a weird kind of, we treat it as like a bonus every year. It's nice to be in the Europa League now, man. We need to be back at the top table where we belong, and it starts here. Getting through the group, aye, I think so. I think we can do that. It feels slightly different now. Obviously,
oh boy, we might be looking back at this.
It feels different now that the draw has been made for obvious reasons, because you know what faces you know. Because I remember for weeks now I've been like, I just really don't know. I can't see how we can possibly draw anything other than just a murderer's row of just like European giants. But now that it's in front of us, now that the task at hand is clear, it's possible. It really is. We've got a dream here, and it's definitely possible.
It is possible. Paul McCann, 1990, hits with a pop quiz. Who scored the goals in the 1980 game against Real Madrid?
Oh, I'm going to say, total guess, George McCluskey.
Okay.
And
do you know the score?
I feel like, was it two-legged. I can't remember. I'm going to say McCluskey.
George McCluskey. Well, Paul, you've got a couple of minutes left to see if you can hand us the answer to that. MH96 says, I want to confuse everyone by turning up and just shelling balls to Yakimakis for 90 minutes. A wee bit of the sort of fakery, all this stuff in the press about how you're going to play your own game and then you turn up and park the bus Mourinho style.
Still got time to sign another giant central striker as well. Just play two of them up there and just launch balls up to them.
Well, look, we've got a
get Charlie McGrew back as well.
Haksanabovic. Was that right? Haksanabovic.
Now that you've said that in a weird kind of
cadence
that I can't.
Well, he's in.
Weird kid.
He's in. Well, we're probably going to bring in another player in, and what's the Champions League group? Is it group of players like 25? It's going to be a very strong, very, very strong Champions League squad. One of the strongest for a while. There's going to be, I think we're going to, we've said this before, I'm sort of repeating the point, but more towards the Champions League. Well, in these European games, how often, Stephen, have we had a key player out and went, oh no, we need to play Bitton. We need to play Cal McGregor at left back. We need to play Jack Hendry. And I just feel like we're not going to have that now.
Well, it wouldn't be the worst thing either, because look at Barcelona. Barcelona was a decimated Celtic team, and we went out and did it 10 years ago. Granted, none of those guys will be involved.
Neil Lennon still remembers.
Yeah, he does. He does. But yeah, the squad will be interesting.
Sorry to interrupt. I was a wee bit sarky there, right? But see if we beat Real Madrid in the same way that we beat Barcelona 10 years ago, we'll still be talking about in 10 years, and Ange Postecoglou's name will be ringing out for doing it. So exactly. My apologies, Neil, if you're watching.
3% possession and beating Real Madrid home and away. Yeah. I'll absolutely take it. The squad will be interesting though. I've not properly looked into the ins and outs and the details of it, but I'd be interested to see just how close we are to the limit of each. Like, we'll get 25, but we need a certain amount of homegrown players. Yeah. You know, so can we actually sign anybody that's not Scottish towards the end of the window without someone missing out? I'd be interested to see how it breaks down in that regard.
I wonder if Billy Gilmore, has he got a move yet?
Oh, I don't know. No, I don't think so. I actually, funnily, read an article the other day, and it was all the Premier League players who hadn't yet made the bench, and Billy Gilmore was in there. So
far too good not to be playing football. That's what all I'm going to say on it. Stephen, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Not really, but I'm excited about it now. I like the look of it. Given the choice, I would have preferred Group D because it was Lisbon. Lisbon was in there. Sporting Club, Spurs, and Eintracht Frankfurt would have been fun. I like the look of that group.
For the pattern.
Yeah. So I like the look of that, but I cannot complain with this one at all. Rangers got Liverpool as well. Happy with that.
Yeah, I'm glad they got a tricky group. Ajax, Liverpool, and Napoli for them. I'm glad they got a tricky group because I couldn't stand any more luck from them. Listen, we're going to have lots of great Champions League themed content for you guys. Obviously, we're going to work hard we're going to go to the home games anyway. We're going to work hard to try and get to the away games and cover them as best we can and bring you some lovely jubbly content.
Alex he's buzzing already. He's already tweeting about how the stuff he's got coming up. Alex, for anyone who isn't aware, is our resident scout now as well. He's going to be doing some stuff ahead of these games, and he's already tweeting about it. He's not even a Celtic fan, and he's buzzing for it.
A most enthusiastic young man is Alex. His name's Euro Expert on Twitter, so check him out. He's going to be scouting all the opposition for us. In fact, he's going to be on the podcast soon with Rangers scouting, Haksanabovic scouting, and anybody else. He's going to scout those guys. But look, thank you so much for your continued support on Patreon. We really, really appreciate it. This is going to be a brilliant season to be covering Celtic. So yeah, keep it locked. 20-minute Tims as he desperately searches for something to say sign offy. Peace.
Keep it locked.